Okay, that should be working again now. What happened last time? I lost the stream. I was told that it was either due to copyrighted audio, which makes no sense, because I didn't have any copyrighted audio playing, or a community flag, which someone's flagged it for some reason. So I don't know quite what happened there, but the YouTube system actually stopped the live stream. So we're back again for some Q&A if anyone is interested. Let's have a look. I'll link that to various places in the meantime. Hi and bye. So yes, if you have any questions, you can ask. I'm sure I will find some bits and pieces to talk about in here. Same question again, please. Yeah, let's hope I don't get cut off midway through. And hello to you, John. But Matthew, your question. As I was saying, there is a video up on the channel about my mother's side of the family. As I say, two great uncles and a great grandfather. And the great uncles were in the Loyal Regiment and the Manchester specifically. They served in the Great War. The two great uncles died on the Battle of the Somme. One on the first day. I forget John, who served with the Manchesters. He died on the first day of the Somme, and my great grandfather, he survived. He was in the Royal Field Artillery. So that's sort of Great War family that I know of. On that side of the family, the Second World War, it was kind of between generations, so they weren't. My great grandfather wasn't young enough to serve, so he ended up in the Home Guard, and my grandmother, actually not a military service, but she ended up as a physiotherapist, treating Australian troops. She certainly remembers the Australians the most, and she was a trainee physiotherapist, so ended up helping troops recover from their wounds. Sadly passed away several years ago, but she had some quite interesting stories about that. And on the other side of my family, on the dad's side of the family, I don't know about the Great War side, and by blood, he's actually technically German. He was born in Bielefeld to German parents before he was adopted. My grandfather, who was in the British Army of the Rhine at the time, adopted him while they were out there. So I don't know about that side of the family beyond, obviously, my grandparents, who I do know. My granddad's brother, my great uncle, he served in submarines in the latter part of the Second World War as a petty officer, electrical artificer, and he ended up in Hong Kong in 1945 and put one of his claims to fame is he put the trams back into operation in Hong Kong. Before an officer, an electrical engineering officer, showed up. He was the most senior sort of electrical expert there, and he ended up getting the generators going and getting the trams back into operation. My grandfather joined the army again. He's actually there's a video of him on YouTube talking about his service. He joined the army after the war. He was in the Royal Army Education Corps, and he ended up in Korea. He ended up in Germany. And in the UK, obviously, various bases and so forth, running the education services for the army. So, that's a little bit of the family military service. That's basically where it cuts off with that generation. So, yeah, that's that question answered, I think. Go on, what's the next one on the list here?
It would be John asking, where did your moustache go?
My moustache was removed due to hygiene concerns with COVID-19. I'm joking, no. I had originally planned to do some Royal Navy one-man's kit videos in outside, as I have done previously. I was going to get back into doing one-man's kit videos, but that has been shelved for the minute. Obviously, you can't have a moustache when you're recreating the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy, it's a full set or nothing. And my initial idea was to do Royal Navy Hong Kong 1945, link back to my great uncle. But I can't at present get over to my grandparents. They're both in their late 80s and very high risk. And as such, we're keeping away. They have a lot of home help coming in. So we're trying to limit, therefore, family going over and adding another load of people due to the current situation, which will also affect how videos go forward, because my grandfather very kindly allows a good portion of his loft to be taken up by the collection. So I've still got plenty of videos to go and some stuff to work on. But hello to everyone in the chat, by the way, who's saying hello. Sorry, I'm just in the middle of answering questions. So yeah, that's where the moustache went. It was shaved off with the intention of doing some Royal Navy videos, and that unfortunately is not going to happen now. Waffly answer, so I apologise for that, but that is the reason. So who's next after that?
One is Max. Have you ever been in Normandy, or would you like to visit Normandy?
I'd love to visit Normandy. Yes. I think there's also one up above, is there not? Do you watch any of the YouTube Militaria channels?
Yeah.
That's further. I'll get to that just after this. Normandy, yes, I would love to. No, it's fine, not a problem. I would love to visit Normandy. I've been over to Arnhem and Oosterbeek, but I've not been over to Normandy, and I would love to. I'd also like to go and visit some of the Great War battlefields in France and Belgium, but I've not had opportunity to do so yet. It's certainly something on the cards for the future, and something I'd love to do, and probably will make a video if and when I go and do that. Obviously, the Arnhem trips and so forth before. Well, the thumbnail for this live stream and the banner image is a photograph taken on Ginkle Heath when we visited several years ago for one of the Arnhem commemorations. My friend Alan, who's turned up in previous videos, and myself looking out as the paratroopers drop. So I've been over there, but I say not over to France in terms of looking at the military history there, and I would love to. And that will definitely be covered in a video if and when I go. So I'll just get to that. Do you watch any other YouTube Militaria channels first? I do, yes. Now I'm going to struggle naming them off the top of my head. There's the Uniform History channel. I found that very interesting. There's Kinnefel, of course, who, I don't know whether you call it Militaria, but military history, naval history. I very much like his content. I watched some of my friends, Jake Brown, who's commented. I watched some of his videos, and various other people. There was a group called Cold War Collectors who I watched. I watched their videos for a time, and that was several people putting videos in, but they've sadly stopped uploading now. But they have a lot of stuff on Eastern Bloc gear, which is interesting to compare, as I've done a little bit myself recently. It's interesting to compare to Western military practice in terms of kit and so forth. So yeah, I do. I watch various. I'm trying to think of the name. Mike's Militaire. I watched some of his videos, and Devin Kruger. I watched some of his videos as well. They're both interesting. Looking at other countries primarily, I find that interesting. Weapons and stuff. I like his videos on respirators. That's always very interesting, especially again some of the Eastern Bloc stuff. He has a large collection of Eastern Bloc respirators. So I've very much enjoyed his videos as well. So yeah, that's a few of them anyway. It's probably more, but that's a few of them. What's next after that?
Zach would like to know if
Thank you.
any news on that Home Guard video.
Right. Yes, Zach, there will be. I will also say thank you very much to my wife Lucy, who's helping me by keeping a track of questions. We thought would be a good idea. So yeah, the Home Guard video again is something I'd like to do ideally when I can actually get back to the garden. The garden you see the photographs taken in whenever I do a one man's kit video is my grandparents' garden. We don't have a garden here, we have a flat. So I do have the occasional photograph taken outside the flat, but particularly with deactivated weapons and stuff in the middle of a town. It's not ideal to go standing around outside with a rifle in the UK anyway. So it has to be done in the privacy of the garden, and obviously when I can get back over there, that's the limiting factor, the primary limiting factor. We don't have our own garden at present. In the future, it'll be a lot easier. So yes, that's where it is at the moment. So what have we got next?
Jack Dixon would like to know, will you do any British military kit or equipment videos pre-World War I?
That is certainly on the cards for the future. Yeah, I'm currently looking into. Well, I've got some Boer War kit. I have a small amount of. I have an original 1888 Slade Wallace belt, and I'm looking at putting together the rest of that, either original components or reproduction. It's something I'd like to do. In terms of original kit, it's quite an expensive area of collecting, purely because obviously, I suppose the older stuff gets, the scarcer it is, and so on. Particularly that time period, even dress uniforms survived, but working uniforms tended to be worn to death. I don't have any original Great War uniform apart from the officer's service dress. I'd like to get an original Great War other ranks service dress jacket at some point. So perhaps that might be a priority before more before going earlier into the very early 20th century and Victoria in the late 19th century. Perhaps I do have some Royal Navy. I have done a Royal Navy video, or a naval volunteer video from the 19th century. One of the mannequins videos I've done previously is of the Royal Naval Artillery Volunteers, which is a Victorian naval uniform essentially, but slightly different for the volunteers. I can certainly do Victorian naval going forward. I plan on doing that at some point. I might put photographs up of that on social media to show. But Dave does have some. He doesn't. I think most of the stuff Dave has is actually 1900, so it's early. It's a dress uniform, but it's pre or into the navy uniform. Yeah, you need an yeah, if you're going to wear a navy uniform. It's baggy in the Victorian era though. It's not as tight, not as tightly cut. So naval uniform, you buy the Second World War, you really need an oppo to help you in and out of it. That's a tangent. At some point, yes, I would like to do videos on pre-First World War kit. That is an idea for the future. What do we have next?
Anders would like to know, do you perhaps know much about Danish post-World War II webbing? We bought a bunch of webbing gear.
You did, yes.
And modified it.
You did modify a load of stuff bought from Britain. I don't know a huge amount about it, but you see the occasional thing turn up with people asking whether or not it's British. I know the modified pouches, I think, with a lift the dot rather than a pressed it or a quick release. And you had your own version of the, well, kind of the 1944 pattern water bottle carrier. It's interesting stuff. There are photographs available online if anyone's interested to have a look at that. It's another one of these. I do have a video coming up shortly on Dutch. Now, I'm probably going to get, I'm hoping in the comments this will be cleared up. Dutch M78 web equipment, the very last, in my understanding of the nomenclature, it's the very last set of Dutch 1937 pattern based web equipment, the last stuff that's compatible with 1937 pattern. Obviously, then it was used into the 90s, and then they moved on to more of a nylon PLC type of equipment. I've got a video coming up on that. It's just another example of European, continental European nation taking on a 1937 pattern and adapting it to their own use post Second World War, which is fascinating because you can see why it happened. Is there's a large amount of surplus available, and a lot of countries re-equipped with it, and then obviously continued adapting it. So yeah, I don't know a huge amount about that in particular, but it interests me because I'm always interested to see other countries' takes on 1930s, on British kit basically in general. And that's another good example of it. Not that I know a huge amount about it myself. I have seen photographs and I've seen the odd component of it. It's not something I think I'd collect. I've got a bit of the Dutch stuff together now, but that's probably as far as that's going to go, just as one example of that. But yeah, it is interesting stuff, and it's something I'd be interested to know a bit more about. If you fancy sending me any information, you can do. Obviously, the social media and the email address linked in various videos. But yeah, no, interesting stuff. What's the next one, please, Lucy?
The next one is from John Shannon, and I think that John Pinero might have already answered it. Is I am putting together my Falcons collection. But the boots are so hard to go by. It seems everyone had private purchase. What was the issue boot at the time?
John the DMS boot. Yeah, the DMS boot. The vast majority of men wore DMS. The primary users of private purchase boots and unit purchase boots were the commandos. They wore various different types of mountain boots. Obviously, the Cairngorm boots that I've made a video on previously is a very good example of that. And they were, now, which commando was it? Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but one of the commandos made a unit purchase of Cairngorm boots, and therefore they very, very commonly show up. Hawkins Cairngorm boots. And they do show up on eBay. I bought mine off eBay, so they do turn up. Just search Hawkins boots or Hawkins Cairngorm or Cairngorm boots. They do turn up occasionally. I've seen more than one pair for sale in the time I've looked for them. They, in various sizes, and did eventually get a pair in my size. But the standard DMS boots do turn up. I was going to say at shows. Obviously, that's not an option at the moment. But eBay, they do turn up. And if you're doing Fifth Infantry, Brigade, whether it's infantry or supporting troops, or even the parachute regiment, then the MS boots are perfectly fine with puttees, ankle puttees. They were the primary boot issued at the time, and it's only sort of the more specialised troops, such as the Marine Commandos, who had private purchase boots, if we want to call them that, or unit purchase boots that go against the standard. So yeah, DMS, that's the way forward. Next one.
Not a question, but just a lovely message from Jack Dixon. He says, looking forward to more videos on with the barracks, which are doing for war impressions. So videos on pre-World War I would be nice to see keep it up.
Yes, that's very kind. Thank you. I will certainly look into doing that. It may be that some of my friends and so forth who have more of the kit,
We're trying to get you into it.
well, who are trying to get to it, we could do videos looking at their kit. I know my friend David, when all this blows over and we're able to actually go and socialise with people again, he has a lovely setup of 1888 equipment and guards uniform. Well, I have similar guards uniforms, but I'm hoping that I may be able to go over to his, or he could come here and bring it with him, and we can do a video on the 1888 equipment as worn for Buckingham Palace Guard and so forth for a long time. It was only in the 1930s that it was completely stripped down, and then post-war, you see a progression. You see the ammunition pouches removed, and then the sort of the 1888 used by the guards gets reduced down, and down. So it's something we could look at the different ways that it was deconstructed over the years, and what the guardsmen looked like in different periods. Perhaps that would be an interesting thing to do. It's not pre-World War I, but the equipment is. So it would be a sort of halfway house, and as I say, we have between us, we have the uniform to do it. So that might be something for the future. I'd have to ask David about that, obviously, but I imagine he'd be positive about that sort of thing. Yeah, as long as he can do a forward roll in the video. If you've seen the Home Guard video, yeah, David has a thing of has decided that whenever he's around, he's going to have to do a forward roll in my videos, and he does in his Home Guard kit in the Rufford Abbey Home Guard video. Does a forward roll wearing his Home Guard kit because he's a bit mad, but we all are. So there we go.
Wonder 112, do you have any French equipment?
Now that is a very good question. I did at one point. I had an Adrian helmet, and I had what I think I had a Horizon Blue greatcoat, double-breasted, which is the M1916, I think. Not great on French kit, but I think it's obviously the M1915 Adrian and the M1916. I wish I'd kept the Adrian now, because obviously they were private purchased by British officers in the Great War. That would have been an interesting thing. The reason I had those, one of my other hobbies is steam railways, and you may have seen a couple of the videos on the channel where I've shown that lighting up. In fact, the engine in those videos is the reason for having that uniform items. It was a locomotive built for the French artillery in Britain by Kerr Stuart, and it was used by the French artillery. They had the French foot artillery operated narrow gauge railways, in their terms 60 centimetre gauge, nominal 2 foot. And we built the locomotive to a French design because their factories were all in use. Now, this locomotive is now preserved, and I drive it on occasion. I helped to a degree with the restoration, doing some small jobs. I was a young lad through most of that, so not skilled in machining and so forth, but I did some work on it, painting and other bits and pieces. And that was the reason for having the French bits of uniform. I wanted to get a couple of bits together to go with that. Now, I do have a plan at some point. The French artillery, the men operating the locomotives, wore a sort of double-breasted, almost like a chef's jacket, I guess, which is quite amusing given the French army. But they had a sort of a white double-breasted overall jacket and trousers, and obviously the kepi. And they wore the coloured kepi, the M18 something or other. I forget, the pre-war coloured kepi before the Horizon Blue was introduced, which for artillery is dark blue with red piping. They wore that, so I'd be interested in getting one of those and maybe the overalls together, because that's actually something you could wear on the foot comfortably. The greatcoat and everything is A, I didn't want to get it muddy, and B, it's not practical. So I may take another foray into that, but it's not something I plan on collecting. I don't think it's French uniform. It's not something that would be of interest. I'd buy it for that purpose and nothing else. Another long and circuitous answer, but there we are. The whole point of that is to try and give you something to listen to, so hopefully it's interesting at least. Next one.
Matt Hoffman, what do you mean about Dunkirk cinema?
Dunkirk cinema.
Dunkirking.
Dunkirking. Sorry, I don't.
Dunkirk in quotation marks. Dunkirk.
Oh, the film. The film.
I don't know. What do you mean about Dunkirk cinema? Or it might be a translation error.
It might be. What do I think about Dunkirk the film? I haven't watched it. I've seen. There are errors in it. One of the biggest ones is the fact that the Spitfire can't glide as far as it did. They did have quite a good gliding range with the engine out, but that seems a bit overblown unnecessarily. So it's a shame they didn't put a bit more effort into removing some of the modern buildings in the port. I thought that was a shame from what I've seen of it. I really need to watch it in full before I start commenting on it. That's not fair, is it? Like any war film, flawed, unfortunately. I don't think there's ever been a perfect war film, but I think they could have done a better job from what I've seen of it, but obviously I've not seen the whole film, so to pass judgment would be ridiculous. I can't. But I that said, for those, I would go into it with an open mind looking for what was good, so yeah, when I watch it, I will let you know. I have been asked by other people to do war film reviews as part of my content. I think it's a bit of a contentious thing, and I'm not a film critic by any means. In terms of, I'd want to talk about the cinematography and things as well, and I can't do that really from any point of standing. So, one thing I might do is one thing I have considered doing is looking at it in films and how right they got it or how wrong they got it. That's something I might do going forward, but as a rule, I don't like to comment. One exception was They Shall Not Grow Old. Much as the title is wrong, it should be they shall grow not old, rather than They Shall Not Grow Old. That was brilliant, obviously, because that's a documentary using I felt I had to endorse that, but that was easy to do. So yeah, film, something I don't really like commenting on, but we'll see where that goes in the future. Next one, please.
I like this one. Andrew Johnson.
Hello, Andrew.
Okay, I always see the two canisters behind your left shoulder. What's in them? Respirator cans?
Yes, these are quite interesting. Hopefully, if I hold this up to the camera, you'll be able to see. They are both. They're both the same purpose. They are the same thing. One has the cord, one doesn't. This one's 1941. The other one was 1940. Both made by H&L. These were developed for the Home Guard, and here we go. Zach Pack, you'll like this. It's about the Home Guard. These were designed to carry the civilian respirator, and indeed this one has one. This one's a lot more beaten up. Unfortunately, there's an issue with both of them, so either of them is perfect. The lid off. They're designed to carry the civilian respirator, as you can see in there. I will be doing an in-depth video on these at some point. They have a cloth lining, and this one's nice because it's had this taped in the bottom. I don't know if you'll be able to see. It's actually got the owner's tag still in the bottom, or what was on a piece of sticky tape, I believe, cloth tape in the bottom there. It carries the civilian respirator, and this was to give the Home Guard something more substantial than the cardboard boxes. And this is at Lucy's. This is in a homemade civilian case, but give you something more substantial than the cardboard box to hold. It is pretty, yes, sort of paper cloth cover. Put that in there. Gives you something more substantial to carry a civilian respirator in. So as I say, cloth lined, and it fits snugly in there. This one is in much better condition. Has the original cord, which very simple. Doubles up, quite a neat little feature of the design. There's a loop on the lid, which means it stays on the cord, as you can see. This one, unfortunately, has had the cloth liner removed, and this has been used for storing something. Does it have the original cord on this one, or is this another cord? I'm not sure. So I need to find some suitable cord to go on the other one to make it usable. But that's what they're for. Oh, that's it. Yes, sorry. Originally, the sticky label would have been on the top here, on the other one, the one that's in the base. So I've got it in the base because obviously the sticky's gone, but it would have been stuck to the lid there. So yeah, just an expedient way of making giving you an easier way, more. Come on, Simon. Yeah, I can edit these out when I'm not doing a live stream. These flubs. It gives you a more robust way of carrying the civilian respirator, so you can use it when you're running around the countryside hunting Nazis dressed as nuns. So yes, that's what these are. They are Home Guard issue. And the reason I have two is that one is in externally better condition than the other, and this one actually is complete. So to find one that looks like this on the inside but looks like that on the outside would be the aim eventually. I don't know if you can actually see what I'm. Yeah, no, it's visible. Yeah. The stream I've got is so lagged I can't tell if they show up behind me, but of course they do. They do. But yes, I've not. As far as I can see, I've yet to put them back on the shelf. Oh, I've just put it back on the shelf now. Okay, that's how long the delay is. Okay. Yes, next one, please. Just using this time to organise my kit. How do you store your webbing/belt? Well, the laptop is currently perched. Boxes? Question mark. Lots of boxes. The laptop is currently perched on top of two of the folding crates that you can get, the plastic folding crates. I would show you with a laptop not perched on them. I found the folding crates great because they nest on top of each other, and provided you fill them so they're not completely full, they'll stack neatly, and you can organise them. So I've got like a jungle stack, Indian made, and then 1944 pattern and stuff, and I've got Aussie stuff. Canadian on top of that, and then I have a big stack of 1958 pattern crates. Yeah, I got a lot of webbing. I have a problem, a serious problem, serious webbing problem. You did know before you married me. Yeah, I have a serious webbing problem. The crates that the laptop is currently on contain. What's in the bottom one? The crates that the laptop is perched on, the top one contains the Dutch kit because that's coming up in a video talking about sort of the last gasp of 1937 pattern. That's coming up soon. The one underneath has a mix of stuff that was headed for the grandparents' loft, but obviously is now on hold. That return journey is on hold for the minute. That's how I store my webbing, is in these plastic folding crates. Which I have to renew occasionally because they do break on occasion. But they are good nonetheless. I don't think they're quite designed for what I put them through. But
one day will really useful storage box.
Everything, yeah, really heavy duty useful storage box stuff will be the way forward at some point. The crates are probably still good for webbing. I'll just buy some nicer ones that are more robust. Yes. And yes, what have we got next? What is your favourite kit to reenact with? Oh man, that's crazy. I can't even answer that. I think I can answer that. I've said this before, and I've said this in previous videos. My favourite decade of the Cold War, the one I found most interesting, is the 1960s. I think 60s jungle kit is some of my favourite. British jungle kit is some of my favourite because you can have a real mishmash of stuff. I like early 1958 pattern, and I like the roll pin belts, which of course aren't actually roll pin, they're slide pin, but whatever. Roll pin belts, the 1944 pattern webbing, all thrown together. You've got the nylon hammocks and all that stuff. Jungle boots. I like all that kit, and that's probably some of my favourite to do with that period. The 50s are good as well. Malaya, I like that stuff too. The jungle warfare stuff is good. I blame Alan for that entirely. That's entirely his fault that I'm so interested in that kit. The other reason is it's a very I think if you went to one of the reasons I like doing that period and that theatre of war is it's all part of the domino theory. Even Borneo to a degree. If you watch Jungle Green, the BBC reporter in Jungle Green stresses Indonesia has the third biggest communist party in the world or something like that. I forget, but there was a threat there of communism behind the scenes, and obviously that's what led to the US involvement in Vietnam, the domino theory, etc., etc. And prior to that, in the 50s, all the support they'd given to the French in Vietnam, Southeast Asia in general, essentially. And Malaya, of course, is the domino that didn't fall. And Malaysia obviously was a great success story, etc., etc. If you went to a reenacting event, if you went to a group of the British public, let's say, and said to them, "Who's heard of the Malayan emergency?" I don't know how many hands would raise. If you went to them and said, "Who's heard of the Vietnam War?" everyone would raise hands. And obviously, the reasons for that are very understandable. The Vietnam War, great, in terms of public perception, it was on television, both in the US and over here. In the BBC sent out loads of reporters. It was ongoing for so long, etc., etc. It's all understandable why the Vietnam War, it looms larger in the public psyche, even in the UK compared to the US. But it means that when you go to an event, you talk about Malaya and you talk about the fact that our troops are out in the jungle fighting in Malaya, communist terrorists, and obviously in Borneo, fighting the confrontation to support Malaysia after that. And obviously, it was all still part of the domino theory to a degree. That's interesting because people latch onto that and go, "Oh, right, I didn't know we were also out there. I know about Vietnam, but I didn't know about this." And it gives you an anchor, because people already heard of Vietnam. So the fact that they then go, "Oh, right, we were fighting in the jungle as well." That's another reason. Is I always like, so that's I would say my favourite. Just a very brief extra tangent on that. One of the reasons I like doing the display at the hangar, which I did the video of a little while ago. Obviously, I'm very lucky. I live next to the UK's, the only flying Huey in the UK, which actually served out in Vietnam. The display I did at the hangar there was great because, again, people know about Vietnam, but they assume it was just an American war, and of course it wasn't. The Republic of Korea were involved, Thailand, and you actually had, I believe, a Spanish medical team, Spanish field hospital, were out there as well. And obviously Australia and New Zealand. And I was talking to people, I had the display of Australia and New Zealand kit. Oh, I didn't know Commonwealth troops were out there as well. So I think there's peripheral knowledge of what was going on out there in terms of fighting communism. But the fact that other forces were involved other than the US, it wasn't as well known. And that's one reason I like doing that, is you bring people, oh, we were doing it as well. Obviously, the end of empire, we were, fighting this war at the same time as withdrawing from the colony. So, yeah, a very long and circuitous answer, but I hope it's interesting. I hope it is good you're taking notes. I can see the list from here. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah, next question, please.
Would you choice in a better year in World War One if you had a choice? So, kind of how would you? I assume how would you improve on the World
War One gear? You see, I think for the time, it's interesting in that Britain went to war in 1914 as probably the best equipped army in Europe, and the most. Obviously, it was a small professional army, and this is the thing that always gets me: is the British Army, soldier for soldier, compared to the average across Europe, was better in many ways, and there is a reason for that. There's not just jingoism; there's a reason for that, and this is in terms of kit as well, not just training. We learned a lot from obviously the Boer War, and we had a small professional army who were highly trained, and you can't do that with a big conscript army, not to the same degree. You can do with the professional corps, and obviously the officer corps and the NCOs and so forth, who will are the core of that army, and the other ranks who are full-time soldiers, certainly, but the vast bulk aren't going to be of the same standard. And from a kit point of view, I actually think the British Army went to war very well equipped. The khaki service dress, the puttees and so forth. I mean, it's easy to say, well, X, Y, and Z would have been a better uniform, even using the materials of the time. I think perhaps the Australian service dress is arguably a bit better. Obviously, you don't have brass buttons. You have obviously composite buttons. It's slightly looser. It's a looser, bigger pockets and so forth. But I like the Australian service dress. Perhaps that might be better. In terms of field headgear, I think the slouch hat, a wide-brimmed sun hat, probably better than the peak cap. But then obviously you have the move to the helmet. So the helmet, I think probably a combination of different. If I could take this question and answer it by combining different bits and pieces, you take the German style helmet. I'd take that as the helmet. I'd take possibly Australian service dress. Probably, I don't know, high boots or puttees and ankle boots. I don't know which I would take there. Probably puttees and ankle boots, to be frank. Most armies were wearing puttees and ankle boots by the end of the war, so they must have been good for something. So puttees and ankle boots, probably. Please put the kettle on for another cup. I'll finish this one. Puttees and ankle boots. 1908 web equipment and Nesmally, and I'd be happy. I wouldn't be happy. I would have hated fighting in the trenches, but that would be an interesting combination. I think you'd have a good combination there. Respirator, I don't know where I'd go for preference of respirator and so forth, but that's the sort of combination I'd like. That's assuming it's all made to a decent quality and everything else. I think 1908 is probably the best equipment in the Great War, even compared to US cartridge belts and things. It's better than 1937 pattern in many ways. So, yeah, I would go with that. And again, that's not just jingoism. I genuinely think that's an honest appraisal. Yeah. What else have we got there?
Next question is from Harriet, who has been waiting for a bit for this.
Sorry, everyone. No. I will get to your question eventually.
I explained that.
I've got a captive audience.
You do.
Yeah.
Could you explain the way British troops put DPM smock hoods around the Mark IV helmet? Which size of hood do you think is the best for that?
Now, that's a good question. It's not actually something I've tried myself. The reason for that is, I've seen this previously, is I have a very nice Mark IV. You did say Mark IV, yes?
Mark IV.
Well done. It's not a Mark V, it's a Mark IV. Excellent. The Mark IV I have here has a DPM cover. I don't know if you'll be able to see underneath everything else, but there's a DPM cover with a net and then scrim and boot laces for attaching more foliage. So I've never bothered because I have this nice original camouflaged helmet here, which I think has just been done with a piece of cloth. Oh no, possibly not. This might have actually been done with a hood, looking at it. So this has been done with a hood possibly and actually had it cut. I've never actually looked that closely, which is a shame really. Just looking at the seam here, not sure if it's a bit of smock or a hood. But anyway, so I've never bothered. I wouldn't know which size would be best. I imagine larger would be better. You might have to make some slight cuts and things in it to get it to fit properly. I don't know. But that would be, it certainly works. I know it was done, but I imagine larger would be better. Just for ease of fitting it over the hood, but I can't say for sure. It's not something I've tried. I will though. I do have a smock hood, not here, but I will try that in the future because I do have a couple of bare Mark IVs that I can try it with one of those and get back to you on that perhaps. But yes.
And just briefly in between the questions,
you
shaved off the moustache because more people have asked. You shaved off the moustache to do.
I shaved off the moustache because I was planning to do Royal Navy stuff. I now can't do in the interim because it would have involved going to my grandparents, and obviously because of the lockdown, that's not really an option at present. So yeah, that's where it is at present, unfortunately. Just realised I'm just going to take a very quick moment. Sorry for the tippy tapping. I'm just going to go and put this on social media because I meant to do that when I had a scheduled one, and then obviously it booted me for some reason, and I don't know why.
Well, someone's already clicked the dislike button. So
oh, have they?
Yeah, someone within minutes. So I don't know if you.
Oh yeah, 2 dislikes. Yeah, 2 dislikes.
How did this even happen?
That's all right. No, it's fine.
About this.
Well, someone won't have liked one of my opinions. They're perfectly entitled to that. That's fine.
No, you know what it is? It's complaints about the lack of staff.
Probably is actually, yeah, and the fact that I don't have a Land Rover. This stream does not involve my new Land Rover, which I don't have because I wasn't buying one. Joke. Just to be clear for everyone. So yeah, that was the hood question. I think was the last one I actually answered, wasn't it?
Zach says, last question. For someone who's looking to do Home Guard reenactment, do you have any tips? And for training a private from the 2nd Carnarvonshire Battalion Home Guard, Snowdon Sector, North Wales. Right.
Okay. So what time period? That's the problem. You need to be very specific about what time period you're recreating. Obviously, earlier is in some ways easier because of the insignia and so forth. If you wanted to go for later, you're into serge battle dress, respirator haversacks. You've got obviously respirator on the chest, proper GS respirators. Thank you. You have Home Guard webbing by that point, the leather belt, the slider at the back, 1937 pattern braces, and the BAR Home Guard pouches, possibly a Sten pouch, depending on what weapon you're carrying. It depends, and it varied somewhat from unit to unit. So, as I think I've said before in comments to you, you need to try and find photographs of the unit you want to portray. If you can't find photographs of that unit, you can have to guess, and or otherwise go for a unit which you can find photographs of to recreate. In terms of the insignia, I think Old Time Design Company produce reproductions of the Home Guard unit badges, which of course have the number and the letter combination to show basically your regional your location essentially, and there is a list available online. Which, if you drop me a message, I'll try and find that and link it to you off the bat. I'm not going to dive into the internet now and try and find it, but I believe there is a list online of the combination of letters and numbers for each different area, different sectors. So you could order them correct for that region. But there were some odd variations in those. So that would be my advice, would be go for one you can find photographs of. But if you're set on doing that one, you can do something sort of generic, I suppose. And as I say, you could at least get the right badges, and I'll try and advise on that going forward, if possible. But yeah, so that would be my advice on that. Yeah, I don't think I can advise any further on that. I mean, the late war Home Guard kit was run over in the Home Guard video for Rufford. So on that front, obviously, if you wanted to do, well, late war, mid-war, 1942 sort of time period, you need to if you look at that video, that will give you a rundown of the basic kit, and it will give you a rundown of of the basic kit for that time period in a fairly generic sense. So yeah, I can't give a more specific answer, I'm afraid, in that obviously it did vary a bit from unit to unit. So photographs would be the way to go forward with that if you can dig them out. It may be worth asking some local if there's local archives and so forth, they may have photographs of that sort of thing. So yes, next one, please.
Michael McKenzie, any tips for an accurate First World War Royal Engineer? Any minor details that aren't well known?
It would depend on what you're doing, and it would depend on. I mean, the Royal Engineers were a massive corps, and they did all sorts of different things. They were engine drivers, they were field company engineers, they were waterways transport. They were signals as well, of course, in the First World War. They dealt with telephony and all of that stuff. They ran the signals and dispatch riders and all sorts of things. It really depends what you're doing. I have done a video looking at an engineer in 5th Field Company, who essentially is equipped as infantry, 1908 Web equipment. This is late war, but it holds true, is field companies tended to be equipped as infantry. But other units, you may have mounted men who would be using most likely the 1903 equipment, and it would depend exactly on what the Royal Engineer in particular you wanted to represent was, what his role was and what unit he was in. So it's not a case of you can actually say infantryman and you can be fairly on the money with that and say for a time period this and this will be right. But even then you have to look at battalions. Some battalions only used 1914 pattern at different points and so forth. So it's difficult to say without pinning down what you want to do further on that, I'm afraid. I need a little bit more information, and it's possibly something better handled in a private message where I can do a bit of research and so forth as well. But it's not, as I say, it's not as easy as what did a Royal Engineer wear. They wore all sorts of stuff depending on what they were doing. Tunnellers as well. Again, their kit was different, and whether they were doing the job or whether they were on the march. A lot of the kit was basically similar, but it would depend.
Signals and/or railway Royal Engineers reference my earlier question, circa 1915.
Okay, so railway. If you were a railway operating division, the kit they wore was minimal. They'd wear the service dress, and they would that was basically they have their overalls for dirty work, but they would primarily they would probably, hello Rosie, yes, you probably hear the cat in the background. Hello you. They'd probably use sorry, just one second.
No.
So they'd probably use second line kit that have O3 and things like this. I've not actually seen them with the rifle equipment. I've only ever seen them on the footplate or obviously operating trains in terms of photographs to identify them. But I can look into that a bit further. And signals, it depends more specifically within that what they were doing. So obviously dispatch riders have specialised clothing. The signals troops, in terms of the kit they would wear on the march, I've seen some in 08, I believe. That's a point, actually. Just one moment. I have a bit of a Bible on that subject, which we'll just have a quick look at here. The Blue Book, uniforms and equipment of. I think I've recommended this on the channel before. Uniforms and equipment of the British Army, World War One, study and period photographs. Pick it up if you're interested in the Great War and British Army, Commonwealth and Empire troops too, well, Dominion Empire troops too. So what do we have here? That is Field Infantry, Royal Engineers, or a little further to the back, Royal Engineers. Okay, so here's Royal Engineers signal section, and we can see here they're wearing pistol equipment, and they have greatcoats worn on bandolier, and you can see there they have, I believe these would be dispatch riders looking at the gauntlets and so forth they're wearing, obviously goggles, and you've got leather leggings as opposed to puttees. But we'll move on to the next one here. We have Royal Engineers Field Company wearing 08, looks just like an infantryman. More here, you can see there another Royal Engineer, 1903 bandolier with a stinker. So it really depends exactly what you're doing, just to show out of interest, really. But yeah, the signal section, it would depend what your role was within. Obviously, I think what we were looking at there previously was dispatch riders. So hopefully that's interesting and of some use, but it's a bit of a nebulous topic that requires perhaps a little bit more digging and a bit more of a firm decision on exactly what you're doing and the type of role down to the individual as to what you're doing to decide exactly what kit you need.
Please send him a message because he'd find it interesting to look into.
Sure, absolutely, by all means. Or if you drop me a message, and because I'm liable to forget because I'm a scatterbrain, that way I will remember to respond.
John Shanahan again. Will you do more videos on one man's kit from Operation Banner?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely on the cards. I'd like to do another early one, an 80s one at some point. Yeah, that's definitely on the cards going forward. One thing I'd like to get is some of the what are they called? Rules of engagement cards. I think that's is that the correct name? I'm having a brain moment now. Anyway, yeah. So yes, no, but anyway, to answer the question, which is what I should be doing, definitely I will be. Come on, Simon. Yes, I will be doing more on Operation Banner. There we go. I got there eventually. Oh dear, it's been a long day. So yes.
Right, 1 second, I'm just popping. Anyway, Cameron, what is the difference between the envelope pattern 37 bottle carrier and skeleton?
So, well, you've got two different types of the sleeve type, which is what I think he means. I don't have them here to talk about, but you've got a long and a short sleeve type, and the skeleton pattern is made up of straps. So the sleeve type is literally a piece of canvas, a piece of webbing with a strap round it to make a sort of bucket sleeve that the bottle fits into. And the skeleton type is literally straps that run around the side of the bottle, like the 08 that went before. The sleeve type pre-existed. It was used with the 1925 pattern web equipment, and then it was introduced for manufacture 1937 pattern after the fact, after the webbing equipment had been introduced. Again, another sort of expedient to allow other companies to manufacture it, and it was just another way of doing it that used a different stock of webbing, basically. So yeah, that's the difference between the two. I say there are technically two types of the sleeve type carrier as well.
I just wanted to, not a question, but Zach responded with, he does know a lot about home guard kit and uniform, thanks to you and other sources like books and stuff.
Yeah.
I have a P14
Very nice.
Enfield rifle booked to buy and already have insignia.
Excellent, no problem. Yeah, as I say, the insignia. I'm glad to hear you've got the insignia. That's excellent. The Maple Forever. Let's do some. This is for. Let's lift this up.
Oh,
this is going to go badly wrong. Let's see how this goes. There we go. So there we go. That's the sewing that was being done the other evening. It's probably been seen on social media, or might have been anyway. Yes. I use Brasso. I use Brasso in a cleaning cloth, so metal polish basically. Is the answer to that. I do use button sticks to protect clothing and equipment on occasion, but I tend to just try and be careful with when cleaning stuff, where you obviously snaps and things, press studs. You just small bit of cloth and just be careful so you're not getting it on the blanco. Yeah, there's a lot of brass sewing in the railway world as well, so that crosses over nicely. Yes. Okay. What is next? I've had a downvote removed, so I must have answered someone's question.
Well, they decided they like you better without the
Maybe. Yeah, a change of heart. Anyway.
So I'm actually planning on doing more kits and bits from outside the Anglosphere, like the MBA kit you did.
Well, yeah, I do plan. Yes, it is rather Anglospheric, this channel, isn't it? There is a reason for that, of course. It's primarily Commonwealth, Dominion, British stuff. I do plan on doing that, yes. There is a plan to do an Australian and US. Well, that's still Anglospheric, isn't it? There's a plan to do an Australian and US. The US doesn't count. Ingrates. No, I'm only joking. There's only so much I can collect. I do have more MVA kits. I would like to do more comparisons with MVA kit, different time periods. Plan, far-flung future, for the anniversary of the building of the wall, Berlin Wall. Oh, a little thing. I don't know if you can hear that on the stream. There's a plan for the. She sounds like she's in distress, and she's not. She's just shouting. There's a plan to do a video for the anniversary of the building of the Berlin Wall, and that will include a comparison of kit from that time period. Sorry, the laptop's rocking around here. So there we go, it's a bit better. So there's a plan to do more of that stuff. There's also a plan to do more stuff within that, the US and Australian, early war Vietnam. That's a plan for the future as well. The mannequin will be much the same as it was compared to British. But anyway, yes?
A clarification on Airplane Doctor's question about Brasso.
Oh, yes.
He wants to clarify that he's speaking of getting the blue-green corrosion off.
Okay, right, yeah, no, that can take a little bit more. You need to, I've used, sorry, I've just had a, Jake's just offered me, so we'll go back to the other question in just a moment. The Brasso question. If you're getting the green stuff off, you can use small brass brushes, quite good. And obviously, if they're brass brush, it doesn't damage the brass too much, and you can bring it back to a shine. That's what I've used to get the green crud off. If you're absolutely stuck, you can use things like Sillet Bang chemicals, which will take corrosion off. But I prefer not to do that if I can avoid it. So it's up to you, really, in that regard, what you prefer. I have used chemicals. I say Sillet Bang, it's the branded. I don't know why I mentioned that, but a cleaner anyway. Vinegar works. But you then need to make sure it's not soaking into the webbing, because it'll soak in and hang around and cause more corrosion. So yeah, that's what I use. A fine wire brush, a brass wire brush, can be used to remove heavy corrosion and greening from your brasses. Hi from Ollie. Very quick one. I've just had Jake Brown message me on Facebook, who's offered me to, if I ever want a comparison on World War II, I'm up for helping, which is linked to a German World War II uniform. So that would be possibly something going forward. Thank you, Jake. That would be very cool to do at some point in the future. So as I said, I would like to track back through time on that. I can only collect so much. I only have so much room, so much disposable income. The MVA.
When we get the house, I'm perfectly fine for him to have.
Oh yeah. We've already been. Yeah, it's already a thing. Years before we got married. It's cool. A very understanding wife is an idea. Is for anyone who's setting out to collect in a serious way, who's not already there. Make sure you find a lady or whoever who is very on board with your hobby, because that's very important to the future of your collecting. I'm lucky I found one. So someone who's enthusiastic as well would be preferable. But anyway, yes. Next, and bakes Madeira cake for the ration videos. Yes, have I uploaded that one yet? I don't think I have. That's one that's coming up soon. But yes, hello Jake. Yes, you've just kindly offered to loan me or help with.
Would you ever do a tour of the collection?
Oh,
I don't know that you could.
I don't think I could really. It's all in boxes, but in the future maybe.
Crammed and packed tightly into an attic. I don't know how well.
I could do a tour of the drawers here, which have all the small kit in them. Maybe that's something I could possibly do in the future in a live stream. But I can't do a tour of the collection.
And also, were you able to find a Glengarry?
I'm not supposed to touch my face. I'm touching my face all the time.
To be fair, you're at home in your own house.
And I've just washed my hands not that long ago. Well, just before starting the stream.
So. And also,
cool guys.
Were you able to find a Glengarry for the camouflage I sent?
No, I have not yet found a Glengarry for the cat badge you sent. No, I need to. I want to get an actual period Glengarry, so that might take a little while. But I might get a more modern one in the meantime. But no, unfortunately, I haven't, Jake. Sorry to say, but I shall. It is noted for the future acquisition for future acquisitions. But just thinking, I'm worried about COVID-19. I have literally every respirator in the world behind me.
You have so much
anyway,
NBC kit. You're fine.
So yeah, no, it's all expired. That's the problem. Anyway.
John Finera again. Did you actually get that Land Rover?
No. No. The Land Rover I took the photo with exists across the road from us. I was going to, before everything that has transpired in the world, I was going to try and find out who owned it and ask if I could film in front of it, which would have been the icing on the cake. But I wasn't able to, A, before the lockdown, and B, after the lockdown. I wouldn't want to be out there. Well, wouldn't really matter, but I wouldn't want to be out there filming anyway, provided there was no one else around. It wouldn't matter unduly to pause briefly on a walk. But yeah, no, I it's not mine. It's someone across the road, and I just took a cheeky photo in front of it, obviously not showing any detail of the registration plate or anything. As I say, it would have been the icing on the cake to have it in the video, but I couldn't resist walking past it the other day just to take a quick selfie to add to the joke. And no, I do not own a Land Rover. It's the simple answer to that. And the collection's not going anywhere, so yes.
Andrew Johnston, sadly for now most shows are cancelled, but what are your favourite events to attend? Me being up north in Glasgow, the furthest I get to is YWE. Any recommendations on others to try and get to?
Yeah, that's one of the problems is I actually end up doing a lot of stuff sort of in the Midlands, because a lot of my friends are further south, and now Miko, we're spread up and down the country. I really love Hat Green. It's an excellent event. It's Cold War, of course. It's not it's purely Cold War, and that's actually interesting. In terms of wartime events, Victory Show is always good. We tend to do the same thing there, and I know some people criticise groups for doing the same thing year on year, but I think if you do something and you do it relatively well, I mean, most of our kit's original, doing the jungle warfare stuff is good. And the Chindits, it's very strange because the Chindits, which is what we do at Victory Show generally, we've done 14th Army as well, but jungle, but Chindits primarily, is odd because I suppose in some ways it's kind of special forces, although obviously they were regular infantry battalions by and large. The operations they were involved with were very sort of special forces operations behind enemy lines. But you would think that with the mentality of some reenactors to do something Gucci, they might be more popular. I suppose the kit's not that easy to get. You'd expect to see more, but you don't. People actually don't know about them very much. Obviously. So it's you feel you're doing something where you are actually educating people and talking to people. Much as the kit is very interesting in itself, it's nice to wear it. And as I say, it may be considered a Gucci unit in some regards. I suppose, from a reenacting point of view. Obviously, our interest goes far deeper than that in the historical context. I think Victory Show is one of the favourite events because of that. Where much as we do the same thing, it's always well received and the public are very interested. And of course, that's in the Midlands. That's near Cosby, so it is quite far south for you. In terms of northern events, my local one, Lytham, is an event.
There's a lot of dressing up.
There's a lot of dressing up at Lytham. Obviously, I wish they would rename it and make it multi-period, because you have the Vietnam display, because we have the Huey locally. You have the Vietnam War display, which at a 40s event, something that's still billed as a 40s event, is a bit odd. Yeah, that's drifted away from some of my favourite events to one I have mixed feelings about. Victory Show and Hat Green, the secret nuclear bunker at Hat Green, the Soviet threat events there, always good, and Victory Show, always good. I would like to get to, I was hoping to get to more this year, doing more post-war stuff, more jungle stuff, my favourite period, as we've said, and my favourite sort of thing to do, but that's not going to happen, obviously.
On the same topic,
just
an addendum.
Don't worry, I'm fine.
John Shanahan, John Shanahan said, what show would you recommend for shopping?
Oh, for shopping? Well, Stoneleigh is always good. But that said, the bargains tend to turn up at the Militaria shows. My entire set of early 1958 pattern equipment has come out of pound piles at different shows. If you are going to buy, if that's your primary purpose, then things like Stoneleigh, and Stoneleigh is probably the best, in my opinion. Then that's the sort of place you need to go. And Stoneleigh is one of the better ones. But the bargains tend to show up at the vehicle shows and the living history shows, particularly the vehicle shows, the MVT shows, where there's a bit of living history on the side. You get a lot of traders there who are trading in what they can still consider surplus, but might not be. It might be collectibles thrown in amongst the surplus. I picked up a SAS altimeter pouch for a couple of quid in a box because the chap didn't know what it was, mint condition. And that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of places you pick up bargains. So, and loads of people turn up stuff at car boots and things like that. So it depends how much time you've got in your hands. If you want a concentrated batch of stuff where you know there's going to be stuff you're probably going to be interested in, then Stoneleigh, places like that, and Stoneleigh in particular, are places to go. If you've got time to go to different events, then you're going to find things more cheaply and more of them at smaller shows, military vehicle shows, things like that.
So, Harry B. Bennett, what would you say is your most memorable / best experience you've had whilst reenacting?
I spent my 21st birthday at the Chiltern Open Air Museum at an event I don't think they run anymore. And we did a weekend of BEF. Now, what period were we doing? I think, yes, it was just post Dunkirk. So the idea, similar to the video I did at Mannington Gardens, Mannington Hall, I think. Previous video to a different event, very similar to sort of training event. We were doing drill, weapons training with the Bren. It was my first proper, I borrowed most of the kit. So we peaked very early, I think, in the reenacting. Coam, Chiltern Open Air Museum event, representing BEF 1940, post Dunkirk, was fantastic. It was my birthday that weekend, so that was great, to celebrate, a great way to celebrate it. And I think I peaked rather early. I've had lots of events since which have been fantastic, but that's definitely, I think it's partly because it was one of the first. It felt excellent, and I'm still learning, and everything was new. I'd done drill in cadets and so forth, but wartime drill is somewhat different from modern. And it was just an excellent thing, and there was plenty of space. The public were interested, they were good to talk to. We did timed talks, but it was in a period way as if the army was demonstrating to the public at the time that there was nothing to fear, the British Army. It was just really well orchestrated. We had period tentage, we had cooking, centralised cooking. It was excellent. It was really, really good, and I have a lot of very happy memories of that. And Alan, my friend, well, at the time, one of the first gifts I was given in terms of reenacting. I got my collarless shirt, which I still have for wear with battle dress. So there was just a lot of very happy memories from that, I have to say. Very, very happy memories. And I've had lots since, but I think there's just a big cluster of happy memories for that event, all in one go.
I will ask this question and then I will go and
finish making tea. Thank you very much.
Numbers month. What got you first into reenactment? Also, love the channel. It's great, and I enjoy every video you publish.
Oh, well, that's very kind. Thank you very much indeed. What got me into reenacting? So I started collecting first to a degree, and my friend David, we knew each other before reenacting, and David was a collector more than I was. He had a lot of nice stuff. And that sort of prompted me to start collecting. I did the usual things. I went and bought myself some Dutch battle dress, and I got a repro skeleton assault vest, and I was going to do commando and everything else. Did some dressing up in the garden as a mid-teens, I guess, mid to late teens. Then I got into Navy, particularly because very few people do Royal Navy. And I started doing Royal Navy, some local events, did an excellent New Year's Eve. It was a fancy dress do, essentially, but on Carnforth Station, which is where Brief Encounter was filmed, or the famous scene under the clock was filmed on Carnforth Station. I actually slept on the station one night. That was the first. We did a reenacting event there as well to promote the cafe there, which had been restored back to the period, the sort of that period, the interior. So beautiful setting. And then got into doing more events. Ended up going down to Chatham for the Dunkirk. I think when would it be? 60th anniversary of 70th anniversary of Dunkirk. Excuse me. Yes. Do my maths here. Yes. Yes, it was 2010.
Was it you turned 30?
I think it was. Yeah. Was it 2010? Must have been. Anyway, Chatham, HMS Cavalier, destroyer there. And we were part of the ship's crew. And I went as a midshipman. And at the time, that uniform, I was an officer cadet at university, and that was my uniform, worn with elements of 1919 pattern web equipment, which I got together. And that's where David and myself, who went down together, met the rest of MECO, which you can see on the polo shirt here, which is the group I'm primarily part of. We met the rest of the group, MECO. Alan, my good friend, Ramsey, I think was there as well, if I remember. I'm not entirely sure Ramsey was there, but met Ramsey a little bit later on anyway, and various other members of the group. And that's when I got into it in a big way. Up to then, it's really been kind of messing around a bit without a lot of guidance. And the first serious event I did was at Woollerton Hall. For those who know the Batman films, it's Wayne Manor in one of the recent Batman films, Woollerton Hall. For those who aren't in the UK and perhaps don't know, Nottingham Way, in Nottingham. And we did an event there looking at the British Army in various different theatres. And what I actually did was Canadian Navy Commando, wearing the assault jerkin, which I borrowed off Gary, another member of the group. And we did a sort of timeline, so early war, different theatres, and so forth. Excuse me, this is talking to me. I'm very good at that. And that's the first proper event I did, and I borrowed more kit for that. And then we got onto Coam and other things, so it just evolved from there, which was great. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Was sort of a gradual progression through friends and doing different events and evolved. I remember a famous quote of mine when I first started: "I'm only doing Navy. I'm not doing anything but Navy." And that soon went by the wayside.
And then just Navy and Army. No RAF, never doing RAF.
Well, it was just I didn't think I'd have space and stuff. But then you make space, don't you?
Yeah, it just happens.
Well, we found one man's kit on Preston Market, didn't we? 50s kit bag.
I did buy that.
You did buy me that.
That was possibly my fault.
That was a very good deal.
It was also because both of my grandfathers were in the RAF during one.
We got service dress. Got a service dress. Didn't get a hat. We got a peaked cap. An RAF kit bag, and for some reason a parachutist life jacket, like a 70s, 80s parachutist life jacket, which I still which is an interesting thing in and of itself, but weird that it was in with the chap had no link, from what could be seen, no link to parachuting at all. Why that would be lumped in with the rest of the kit, I don't know. But that's how I got into RAF. So it was progression. To answer the question, it was a gradual progression from collecting into reenacting, and that became refined into displaying the kit and reenacting using as much original kit as possible, and trying to stress the historical side. And obviously doing displays like I've done for, you've possibly seen in previous videos, for Armed Forces Day with mannequins with me just in cities, but talking about them, so almost doing a mobile museum display. So it's various different levels of it, I suppose. Next question, please.
Living history Barber.
Yes.
Oh, actually, I have a proper question, living history related.
Okay.
Great Dorset Steam Fair.
Yes.
Would you ever take part in the Great War bit? I think I would rip someone's arm off to go back there.
I would love to go back to the Great Dorset Steam Fair. I'd definitely take part in the Great War bit. There were some odd parts of it that I thought were a bit reenactory, but you get that. That's just how it is. There were some good chaps as well whose kit was very good. But yeah, I think the trench there they've got, it was well done. The big artillery piece, I don't know what I can't remember what field piece that's supposed to be. 7-inch howitzer. Big artillery piece anyway. That replica is excellent. That was a nice touch. All the vehicles there as well, the old Great War era trucks. I would definitely be interested to be able to go and reenact in the trench there that they have dug. It's quite good. The system they had for letting people in and out seemed very good as well. So you can, there were some reenactorisms I noticed when the chap who was doing the spiel last time we were there slipped in that I thought were a little ahistorical, shall we say. And I think one of the nurses had an odd idea of when penicillin was introduced. So a little bit of confusion being told to people historically there by people, but the actual setting itself, I'm really impressed and would definitely like to do that. Yes, yeah. If the opportunity arose, it's a long way away from us, unfortunately. It's let's think, 5-hour drive, 4.5, 5-hour drive, more than that maybe. Yeah, so it's a long way away from us. The big howitzer, I think, is a replica with, as far as I know, it's just the one that could be towed. It's been towed out on the road. I don't think that's a real gun. They have had real artillery there, I think. But I don't think the big gun is a real one. I think that's a replica. But I could be wrong. I'd have to look into that. As far as I'm aware, it's a replica.
Daniel Taylor was incredibly serious question. Who is this smooth-faced young lad?
Okay, I'm not that young.
You turned 30.
I turned 30. I'm now in my 4th decade. Yeah, no, the moustache went because I was planning on doing some Royal Navy stuff, which I can't do now on account of the fact that visiting my grandparents is quite apart from the guidelines, a family decision not to, because they have a lot of home help and they have enough people tromping in and out of the house without us going over as well and just adding to risk. Yeah, I was planning on using their garden for that. I can't. So the tash came off and I can't do what I planned to do as a result of that. So there we are. In the future, it will have to stay off for a little bit longer than I'd imagined it would. That's all.
Lemon and Lime Lego Production says, have you ever checked out British_Army_collector on Instagram? Honestly, he's like a younger you.
I have not, but I will do so. British_Army_collector.
Yes.
Okay, I will have a look.
To write?
Yeah, well, you've got it on your list. Just keep hold of that bit on the list, and I will have a look.
Take that out and keep it for...
I'm not sure I like the idea of a younger me. That sounds scary.
Well, I do threaten to trade you in.
You do, yes.
Yeah, you're getting old.
Yeah.
Some duck with an automat.
Okay. I like these names.
Slightly late to the party. I was in the middle of an archive dive.
Ah.
Do you have any idea whether or not it was normal to see both Brodies and Turtles in the same unit, Northwest Europe, late war?
Could you reread that? Sorry.
Do you have any idea whether or not it was normal to see both Brodies and Turtles in the same unit in Northwest Europe,
right,
late
yes.
war?
That's a very good question. and one I can't answer off the top of my head. I can't think of photographs where I've seen them mixed, but it would make sense as they were progressively issued out for it to be the case. So unfortunately, I'll have to hold my hand up and say I don't know off the top of my head. Obviously, the initial issue of them was very limited, the Mark III, for assault troops, but I don't know for certain on that how mixed you would see the issue. So yes, there we are. I can't provide a solid answer to that, I'm afraid, off the top of my head.
Mark II and Mark III helmets, I ran out of characters.
All right, okay, yeah, no, I got what you meant. Don't worry, I know what you mean by turtle helmet. That's fine.
And the Living History Bible says in 2018, I think there was a live one, but I wasn't at that one.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Well, ours was last year, 2019. Yeah, no. Oh, is he? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's giving it. Yes, definitely. Is he heading out? Sorry. Say seven, stay indoors. Yeah, I must have. Bye bye. If you've gone, Living History. Bye bye. Bye bye.
So Harry is asking another question.
Can I just ask what now, Stinky, very quickly? How do I drink my tea? Like this.
Oh, you are such a cheeky person.
So yes.
I've managed to not murder him yet.
White, no sugar.
Harry's asked, my Mark IV has a big A sticker on the back. I've heard these were used in NI as ambulance personnel.
Oh, right,
okay. Knowledge about that?
Not something I've come across before. That I have to say, that's not something I've come across. So I can't comment on that. Possibly, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know.
The British modeler. I recently picked up a 1934 dated Cameron Highlanders marching tunic. Do you happen to know what type of belt was worn along with it, as I would like to have a full mannequin to display?
Oh, excellent. I'll need you to clarify what you mean by marching tunic. It'll be a cutaway, presumably, but I don't know if you mean a dress uniform, or I'm not entirely sure what you mean by marching tunic. That's not something I've, terminology-wise, it's possibly something I'm ignorant of, but it's not something I've come across before. So I would need to clarify that. It's probably something I'd have to look into anyway, because I don't think I can answer that off the top of my head, even if I know what type of tunic it is. So by all means, drop me a message, and we can discuss that further. Okie dokie.
Mark Lanyon says, have you ever been to Guernsey for the Liberation Day? I
haven't, no. I did have the opportunity, and unfortunately I couldn't go. They were reenacting Force 135, the Royal Artillery. There was the troops sent over essentially for the Liberation, and I wanted to go but couldn't at the time. I just didn't have the resources to pay for the trip. So unfortunately didn't get a chance to go on that one. But it's something I'd like to do in the future, definitely. Time and everything else permitting, obviously. And other members of the group went and really enjoyed it. So yes.
The British modeler corrected dress uniform, sorry.
Dress uniform. So I believe that would be some manner of white belt, probably with a locket buckle. But I would need to double check on that. I mean, it would be if it was dress uniform. It would probably still be the Slade Wallace belt. But I would need to double check that. But what a lovely thing to have. It's the cutaway, the doublet, I think it would be in terminology, I'm not sure. But what a lovely thing to have. Hopefully I'll be able to get the uniform put together for that. That'll look excellent. Very nice thing to have. By a cat.
Attacked by a cat. Forever, what Canadian Army pattern equipment do you have?
So I currently have. I currently have some Canadian manufactured 1937 pattern. Slowly increasing my collection of that. I of course have 1951 pattern, as people will have seen in previous videos, and I have 1964 pattern, which I intend to expand upon by getting the 1982 pattern. I'd like to complete the timeline going that way, at least as far as I'm interested in taking it. Excuse me. I'm going to have a sore throat tomorrow from all this talking. I've not talked so much. The problem is isolation. You don't talk to people very much, and then suddenly I'm doing a live stream. So yeah, the 1982 pattern is what I need to get. I'd like to get early components of that ideally, and then a 1964 pattern, 1951 pattern, and some Canadian 1937 pattern I have at present. And I'd like to get more of the Canadian 1937 pattern together. A 1937 pattern set of Canadian-made equipment would be nice.
The British modeler also asks, do you own any swords?
I do. Could you pass me the sword, please, Lucy? You have a cat on you now. You can't pass me the sword.
I am now incapacitated by a small fluffy cat.
I don't
what kind
know.
of secretary is this?
Yes, exactly. Pass me my sword.
French.
Now, is this 1803 pattern infantry saber? This is, oh, Napoleonic now. I have to remember, it's a replica anyway. Indian made, not the best quality, but yes, I have a sword. I used to have other swords, but this is the only sword I have at present, and it's a bit filthy, it's been on the wall. This is, if I remember correctly, the nomenclature, this is an 1803 pattern flank company saber, so for use by in the Napoleonic era and for a time afterwards, and prior to that and a time afterwards, the British Army regiments, line regiments, had flank companies, both light infantry and grenadier, and they fought on the flank of. The idea was the line was in the centre, and then you'd have on the flanks you had the light infantry and the grenadiers. Often they were detached and used separately. But the officers were provided with, as opposed to having the straight sword of the, what they were supposed to have, as opposed to having the straight sword of the line, officers, you would have a flank company saber, and that's what this is. And it has both hanging rings and also a stud, so it can be carried in a frog on a cross belt. But yes, so various regiments had different patterns of sword and things as well. So this is not by any means universal, and obviously a lot of stuff was private purchase, so it depended. A lot of men chose differently to that as well. But that's a sword I have, and what it actually has here is a naval sword knot, because I do have a Napoleonic officer's naval uniform undress, and this was for use with that. Much as it isn't really a naval sword, but yes, that's a sword. It does have sure, it is actually a sword. It does have a blade. There we go.
The Maple Forever also said, I can send you some 84 pattern.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. That's very, very kind indeed. If you could drop me a message, fantastic. I will be very interested to discuss that. Thank you very much indeed. That's very generous. Thank you. Very kind.
Great live chat. Lovely lengthy answers. Sorry, I have to leave. Stay safe. Best from Sweden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. Yeah, sorry I waffle. I cannot avoid that, seemingly. I will try and be a bit more concise as we go forward.
How much did this is from M. Cameron, how much did your World War II British uniform cost?
Right, okay, so that's unquantifiable. It is priceless to me. No, the battle dress from Panther Store, news from Panther Store. Apparently, another company's taking on the production. Haven't heard more details on this, and I need to look into it because I'm not in the market myself. But word on the grapevine. Anyway, and that was about £250, £200 for the suit. The webbing and the respirators and things. I mean, I've just collected bit by bit, so I don't really know. Most of my stuff is original. I mean, I've bought original battle dress as well, so I wear original battle dress when I'm doing later periods. I tend to wear the Panther stuff for early war because it's battle dress surge. But if I'm doing late war, I'll frequently wear original, and I can't think what I've paid for some of those. So it really depends on exactly what combination I'm wearing. But £300 maybe, £400 depending. In current prices, if you wanted to sell a set, I suppose you could probably get about £300. The amount of money battle dress is going for now would make up the bulk of that. So yeah, that's an estimate. I mean, I can't put a price on what I paid, unfortunately. So yes.
You just got a quick hello from Sledgehammer Maniac. Hey Moore, do you remember me? I used to be Soviet military Slav. You repaired my civilian respirator for me.
I did. Yes, I put the fresh elastics on and made a fresh head harness for it. I think. Yes, I do remember. And the video for that is still up on the channel. I think of when I did that. I still have the medals you gave me somewhere. So thank you very much indeed for those. So yeah.
Peter Flitcroft.
Oh, hello, Peter.
Have you got a useful mesh survival vest in your collection?
I have a survival vest. Now I
USA?
don't have a survival. Yes, no, I know I don't have a survival vest. No, I don't. And hello, Peter. Hope everything's going all right with the traction engine. If it is the same Peter, this is the same Peter.
Thank you for looking after
if it is the same Peter, I'm assuming it's the same Peter. I don't know. Yeah, if you saw the video from Great Dorset, Peter Flitcroft is the chap who very kindly let me steer his. If it's the same Peter, I'm doing a lot of presuming here. That very kindly let me drive his steer his traction engine around the arena, which was great fun. So yes, unfortunately, no, I do not have a useful survival vest really in my collection. No, I don't have anything as practical as that. Next one, please.
Roadhound Scrivener Anderson. Have you ever considered doing any of the events at Beamish Museum?
I have.
Great for pre-World War I and 1940s events, plus it's quite easy to organise just using the site for training. Absolutely,
I'd love to go to Beamish. I have a friend and acquaintance. I consider Rob Langham a friend, but he's involved with the very early railway system there, obviously with the steam elephant and everything. And he's been involved with Great War events there as well. I would love to go to Beamish to visit. I haven't been to Beamish to visit, and I really should at some point. But I'd love to go and do an event there, most definitely. Done events at the Black Country Museum before now. They're a bit odd. We've done events for them outside of their own 40s event, and they were a little bit. I don't know quite whether we didn't provide what they were asking for or what the case was, but we did have an issue there, I think, particularly doing stuff that wasn't Great War. So much as they had the 1930s street, I think that's about the cut-off. They want to cut off about there, which is a shame because we thought doing a 50s event there would be excellent. I mean, 1949 pattern battle dress cutting down the street there would look amazing. But Beamish, definitely somewhere I'd like to go and do an event going forward, most definitely. Because I'd like to do some more earlier reenacting as well. I've not done a Great War event for a time now, so it would be very good to do, most definitely. I'd be interested in that.
Sledgehammer said he could send you a full set of tornado flight gear to have a look at.
Oh, well, that would be very interesting. I know my friend David would be very interested to have a look at that as well. He has some kit from that time period. So I don't know if he has all of it, but he'd be interested to see that as well. So that possibly for the future, that's very kind. Thank you. To have a look at, to borrow to have a look at would be excellent. Have a run through.
Saturn, my guy.
Yes.
Your greatest reenacting mistake.
Okay, that's easy. So the very same event I mentioned before, not Coam, sorry, the Chatham event I mentioned previously. David and I, my friend, were both. Oh well, the question is, are you asking for something I've done wrong in terms of uniform and kit, or are you asking for some error or some misdemeanor or something that's happened at a reenacting event? Could you perhaps clarify that, and I'll be able to give you an answer that perhaps.
Considering your website, your videos, I imagine uniform.
Yeah, just clarify that, and I'll get back to that question if you can, and if not, I'll answer it a couple of questions down anyway. But oh wow, fantastic! That would be excellent then. Going and doing a Cold War. Oh, hi Lucy. Here we are. I'm assuming it is the year. So yeah, no, that would be excellent. I'd love to see that if they're doing a 50s street. Yes, it is him. Excellent. I'm glad we've got the right Peter. That's good. I hope all's well with you, by the way, in these trying times.
And your brother as
well. And your brother as well, of course. Yes. So.
Jamie Wells says hello.
Hello.
Do you know if there was ever an issue version of the SAS Winfield Smith in Ventile fabric as opposed to the SAS Lancaster version? Perhaps a bit of an obscure question.
It is a bit of an obscure question. Now, I get what you're asking. I don't know. My knowledge of sort of SF issue kit is not the best. I tend to stick to relatively sort of bog standard infantry, I guess, most of the time. So I don't know that off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Good place to ask might be the HMVF forums, the Historical Military Vehicle forums. They have a lot of chaps on there who are very much into their post-war kit, who may be able to answer that question, but I can't, I'm afraid.
I was correct. Thatcher wants to know both. He wants to know.
Okay, that's great.
What's the naughtiest thing
Yeah.
you've done?
So
and
so
what's the worst
that's
thing you've
easy.
done?
I'll carry on that story then. The naughtiest thing, the thing that happened that was a mistake resulting from my actions at an event. So we went to Chatham, and David and I were reenacting Royal Navy, and we decided to. There was a few chaps had set up. They were reenacting British Army, and they'd set up a proper bayonet practice with big wooden frames with large sacks of straw, which was excellent. A really good setup. Big heavyweight wooden frames. And David and I decided we were going to have a go at this, so they lent us a couple of SMLEs with bayonets fixed, and we stormed forward, and in we went. And I was too enthusiastic, and I actually knocked the frame over. Sorry, no, I didn't. I didn't knock the frame over. No, let me correct. David knocked his frame over, and then I went in with the rifle butt to hit his one on the ground, and I nearly hit David in the face with the bayonet, which is a 1907 sword bayonet. It's not what you want to get hit in the face with
By your best friend.
by your best friend. So that was a learning curve of, okay, yeah, the rifle's deactivated, but the bayonet may have had the edge ground off, but it still has a point. So that, and that's the point of the story as well, is that there's a lesson in all of this. Yeah, exactly. So yes, don't stab your friend in the face with a bayonet is the moral of that story. The worst thing I've done, now I'm very lucky in that before I started reenacting in a big way, I got dadded by people who knew a lot more than I did as a young sprog of barely 20. Because I obviously a lot of people start reenacting before that. I only really came to reenacting as a very late teens, early 20s. I got policed very early on, which was good. So the worst thing I did, I think, would be at Woollerton Hall. In place of Canadian battle dress, I wore Greek, which is actually the Greek battle dress I had. Greek battle dress tends to be very green. The Greek battle dress I had was very, very close to Canadian battle dress in colour. So that was okay, but it's a much rougher cloth. And I had actually swapped the buttons for the Canadian battle dress buttons. So it was better than it might have been, but it was still Greek BD. I mean, it was still wrong. There is a photo knocking around somewhere of me, which was just taken in the back garden. So whether it counts as reenacting, I don't know. But I am wearing Australian post-war battle dress trousers, a Greek or Dutch battle dress blouse, a skeleton assault jacket, a skeleton assault vest, excuse me, the skeleton jerkin anyway, with just the Bren pouches. One of those patterns, I can't remember which. A repro, obviously. A Mark II helmet, badly scrimmed up, with a Bren and a Bren spare parts wallet. And boots were combat boots, British Army combat boots, with anklets worn over them. And that was mid to late teens, so probably 16, 17. And I knew it wasn't right, but it was what I had. I didn't go out to an event wearing that lot, but the photograph does exist of me wearing that. And I look back on it with a wry smile. Yeah. So yeah, I think in terms of kit being wrong, I got policed very early on, which was good. Better than some groups where clearly it's the blind leading the blind, and the chap at the top doesn't know what they're doing themselves, which is a shame these days. There's so much information available. But anyway, that's another. I won't get into rants on reenacting. That's not the purpose of this stream. Next question, please.
John Shanahan again.
Yes.
One last question.
There is no limit to the number of questions, by the way, just to be clear. I will have to stop at some point. But yes.
We might have to say no more questions so you can get through
the
rest of the questions.
Okay.
I have got my hands on a fairly new Parabero.
Yes.
The cat badge is black. Any information?
So the cat badge being painted black started in the, I don't want to say late 70s, I think the 80s. Certainly you see chaps in Northern Ireland with black cat badges, and they were painted at that point. and then they obviously supply catches up with this, and they started to make them in black. So yeah, for wearing the beret, you see them in the Falklands with the blackened cap badges. For wearing the beret in the field, blackened cap badges are ideal from that point of view. They reduce the shine, but you're still wearing the insignia to show who you are, what unit you're from. So yeah, that's something that sort of crept into the army when berets were still being worn in the field. And they would say they were worn in Northern Ireland. I don't know the specific reason from that, but I would imagine it's one last very shiny bit of kit, a Stay Bright cap badge, which can catch the light and really give away your position. I don't know, even in an urban setting, perhaps a flash of light where you're trying to conceal yourself. But that's when it appears to have come into use, and certainly, as I say, in the Falklands, you see a lot of blackened cap badges being worn. So yeah, but then they started making them that way. Initially it was literally they were painted, and then the what was sort of a unit modification, done at unit level, they start to actually produce them that way. So yeah, you now get black cap badges as well as bright.
I don't know if I did let you know that Sledgehammer said after the virus he'll pop you an email about the 20.
Oh, cool. That's very good. That's a good plan. I will probably say another 5 minutes, and then I'll say no more questions, because otherwise it's going to run very late.
You do take a while.
I do take a while. Next question, please.
General Bannister Tarleton.
That's an excellent. No, it's Bannister Tarleton.
Bannister Tarleton.
He's a local lad. Tarleton's just down the road from us.
Yes, but it could be a different Tarleton.
No, it's
what was the first thing you bought in your collection?
Does it have to be something I bought, or could it be something someone bought for me?
Because it would be something you bought. What's the first thing you
I don't know.
Did?
I know what the first thing that was bought for me was, but I don't know what I bought.
What was the first thing?
The first thing bought for me was a 1958 pattern water bottle pouch at an air show. Dad bought me, so I could wear it on and then we got a belt somewhere else, so I could wear a belt and a pouch. Yeah. As a kid. I don't remember what I... Mark II helmet, maybe? Possibly a Mark II helmet. Was the helmet the first thing? I know, like, the 5th or 6th thing I bought was a Bren gun. Because they were really cheap at the time, so I snapped one up. The drill purpose one, which I removed the drill purpose markings from, which I probably shouldn't have done, but from a collecting point of view. But never mind. I was young and foolish.
Really important question.
Yes.
From Tamaki.
Okay.
Which is cooler, berets or side caps?
Berets, most definitely.
And he did also say any other answer than berets is wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, berets. Berets are better. I like berets. But FS cap or GS cap? That's the question. Field service caps, a side cap, or the hat's horrible. Well, not hat's horrible. What is it? The cap's ridiculous. There we go. Sorry, hat's horrible comes later. Which is better? There's a question to pop back at you. GS cap or side cap? See you, Peter.
But we must meet up.
We really must. Yes, I'm sorry.
We'll show you around the yard.
Yeah, I must come and do that, and I'm really sorry we haven't done already. But yeah, stay safe. Next question, please.
What is the oldest item in your collection?
Probably the 1888 belt, the Slade Wallace belt I have. I don't have a date on it, but it's probably the oldest thing I have. Yeah. I have a couple of them. I have a blackened one as well, which I need to get proper buckles and things for. So one of those two has to be the oldest thing I have.
Gianluca says, I always wanted to ask you, how many L1A1 FAL mags can you fit in a general purpose pouch, like the M44 and such? Also, do you have a battle jerkin?
I don't have a battle jerkin, no. The one you'll have seen in videos possibly is my friend Alan's, who has a nice collection of battle jerkins, which we might look at in future videos in more detail, potentially. I think Alan might be up for that. So can we just go back to the question? M44, the wording confuses me a little.
How many L1A1
magazines
FAL magazines
yeah.
can you fit in a general purpose pouch, like the M44 and such?
The M44. GP pouch. I don't know what you mean by general purpose pouch, I'm afraid. An M44. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. 1944 pattern? I don't know. I need clarification because I don't fully understand the question. I'm not sure what the terminology. So I'll get back to that one if we can clarify in the comments. I will accept that one before the 5-minute limit, which is just coming up. But otherwise, we'll have a stop to questions in just a moment.
I'll just type it now.
Okay.
Sasha, my guy, asked, what uniform do you like the least in general?
Well, that's a very broad thing. If I had to pick a combat uniform, or do I go uniform in general? Let's narrow that down a little bit, because otherwise it's going to be ridiculously nebulous. And I will go international though. Combat uniform that I like the least. Still quite difficult, really. I'll have to think about that. I don't think I can give a direct answer on that straight away.
Gianluca,
unless you want to narrow it down a bit, that would help.
Gianluca has qualified. Oh yes, I meant the late World War II and early Cold War patterns of mag pouches.
Okay, so the 1944 pattern pouches, I've not tried, but a few. You could definitely get a few in there. Probably you might be able to squeeze 4 in each, because they're quite big pouches. Definitely 3, but I'd need to try, and I haven't done capacity-wise. You can carry a lot. 1944 pattern pouches are big for a reason, to give you a lot of that extra carrying capacity. They're not 1951 pattern big, well tall, but they're very deep. So yeah, you could fit. I can't give you a direct answer to that because I haven't tried, but I would say 3 or 4 in each one.
Harry B says, what would you recommend getting for an 80s era BAOR personal wash kit? I imagine it would all be private purchase, but I figured I'd ask anyway.
Yeah, you have some issue items like the talc powder, I think, was still issued. I will probably be doing a video on that at some point. But yeah, primarily you'd be looking at private purchase items, so soap in a soap dish, shaving kit. You see, there's actually from BAOR, I can sort of extrapolate over to photos. A lot more photos taken in the Falklands, obviously, because it's an active theatre of war. And you see photographs of chaps there with the Bic razors, the orange Bic razors. I have some green flannels, they're carrying flannels. And you've got, obviously you'd have shaving foam or shaving stick and a brush and things like this. So, as I say, civilian items of the time, you'd probably still have a comb and things like that in there. But it did vary a bit more by that time period from person to person as to what you'd have. So yeah, primarily civilian items. In terms of picking those bits and pieces up, I mean, obviously Bic razors and things are still, the orange disposable razors and things are still easy to come by. You wouldn't necessarily have those. You might have, obviously razor with razor blades still, but they're not hard to find, suitable types for the 80s. And you could still have the shaving stick or a tube, maybe of shaving foam and a brush, or maybe a can that's quite bulky. And they do turn up on eBay occasionally, new old stock items of these toiletries. So it's a good place to look out for them. Toothpaste and things like that as well do turn up on occasion. And period toothbrushes, again, you can pick them up still, new old stock. So yeah, not too difficult to put together.
The British modeler asked, you wouldn't happen to know when the Balmoral hat was worn, as I've found very few photos. Scots regiments by the time of World War I seem to only be wearing Glengarrys and the bearskins. Yes,
now that's a good question, and one I can't answer off the top of my head, I'm afraid, but there are changes in headdress regulations, and obviously then the Balmoral will be used more unit specifically going forward. So I would need to look into that. I can't give you the regs on that off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
Sunshine hands off.
See ya.
Keep safe and keep the
Yeah.
videos
Have we had the question cut off?
I've posted a
question. That's great. Yeah, that's fine. No worries.
Because I said you'd lose your voice.
I would lose my voice. It's true.
Starting to go a little bit. Sledgehammer Maniac again, what's the worst thing you've seen in reenactments kit-wise in the form of inaccuracy?
Dead easy, that. Okay, so eBay, they produce, on eBay, you can buy a one-piece Velcro, nylon, well, polyester, probably, home guard fancy dress outfit. And the guy modelling it looks vaguely like Captain Mannering, and they've even done like the West Kent, I think, cap badge. They've even done a facsimile of that on the cap, and I have seen those worn in earnest at reenacting events by people reenacting home guard. Strollers, but they're there with their wife or whatever in period dress and everything, doing bad civilian reenacting, wearing what we call the home guard romper suit. It has a nickname. In earnest at reenacting events, and it is a fancy dress costume, throwaway fancy dress costume for a one, night party or whatever, and people buy them and wear them to reenacting events to try and reenact home guard, which is just, it beggars belief, it really does. But they're having fun, I guess, but they're not they're not educating anyone. That's certainly true. But there we are. Yeah, that's the worst thing I've seen, and it does make me roll my eyes, I have to say. Yes.
Kieran asks, hello there. Would you be interested in any of the growing events in Scotland, or have had any interest in any before?
Certainly be interested, yes. Obviously, when all of this stuff passes over, I'd certainly be interested in looking at more events up north. Definitely, yeah, and that would be good to do. But obviously, when things are actually back on and running. Do we have another question?
We do. We have a couple more. Carl Swanson, what's
yes.
a good price for a World War I British helmet shell?
Ooh, now that's a good question. I've not seen one sell for what I would consider a decent price for a while. I don't actually have an original Brodie helmet shell, restored or otherwise, because I've not seen one go for what I would consider to be a decent price. The problem is the last one I think I saw purchased, obviously it depends on condition, was for about £50 at Stoneleigh, but that was a few years ago now. I thought that was an okay price. It was bought by a friend of mine. And that's roughly what I would look to pay for one in okay condition, no liner or anything like that. He did some restoration work. He was buying one to fit a liner in and use. And it had lovely, loads of stress marks in it from where it had been pressed. The rim, very flimsy. It was a rimless example, not a Mark 1, a Brodie Type B. So I can't really answer that because I don't know what the current going rate is. So I've not been in the market. I imagine prices have gone up a lot, and that's probably reflected in what they're going for on eBay, I'm afraid to say. Sorry, I can't be more help on that, really.
And the last question is coming from the British modeler.
Yes.
Curious what sort of music you like.
Wow. Okay, that's broad. So I like all sorts of stuff. I listen to quite a lot of 80s music. I really like Pink Floyd, Genesis, prog rock in general, really. The Who. I listen to 60s stuff as well. The Kinks, the Animals, the Beatles. I like that stuff. Depending, I don't like everything everyone produced, but there's a lot of stuff in there. I like quite a lot of 80s pop music as well, to a degree. Trying to think of other sort of Nine Inch Nails occasionally. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's my influence. Yeah, I like metal as well, to a degree. Yeah, it's bad. A real variety of stuff. Metallica, AC/DC. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Really, it's quite a. I listen to classical music as well, quite like organ music. It really is a wide spectrum of music that I like, and I'll listen to, depending on what I feel in the mood for. I'll put on.
Your favourite band is Pink Floyd, though?
My favourite band is Pink Floyd. I really love Pink Floyd. The soundscaping they do is beautiful. David Gilmour is a genius. Of just such a guitarist, amazing. But anyway, yes. And a voice as well. Yeah.
One second.
What was Jake?
Jake Brown collection. Sorry, I might have missed it. I was rushing up. Did Simon answer my last question? Oh my gosh. Sorry, Jake. I have been deleting the questions off my list as they've been answered. So yes, I just can't remember what the question was.
What was your question, Jake?
You have to repeat it.
Yeah.
And the other question that the British modeler asked was, is there a place that he can send you. Do you have an address he can send things to? Because he's got some things that he would like to sell, bits from his collection.
Oh.
And he thought you might be interested in them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. If you drop me a message on Facebook or by the email address, which you'll find in the other videos, which I think is riflemanmoore at yahoo.com, riflemanmoore, all lowercase, all joined up. If you drop me an email there, we can talk about that, definitely. Thank you very much for thinking of me, and I'll certainly be interested to know what you've got and discuss, if it's something I want to add to my collection. So yes, thank you very much. I'll be interested to hear.
But yeah, Jake, if you want to repeat your question.
Yes, Jake, if you could repeat your question. Sorry, I think I did answer it, but we've lost it from the list that Lucy was compiling. And was there any clarification on the uniform, what the uniform I didn't like? Because that's quite a nebulous thing. I was hoping it would be narrowed down.
Let's say British and Commonwealth.
British and Commonwealth. Okay. Uniform. So the 80s, the move to the, well, it was the 70s actually, the move to a lot of man-made fibres in British uniform. And I don't mean combat uniform specifically. I'm talking about like the wool shirt and things like that. Now, lightweights were great, but the uniform item that I think is a terrible thing is the KF shirt, the green KF shirt, which was a wool mix with nylon. I think it's nylon. It's not pure wool. And if you wear pure wool flannel, it's actually quite comfortable. But the army, anyone who was in the 80s, has late 70s and the 80s, has a terrible memory of the shirts because they're horrible, absolutely foul pieces of clothing. And yeah, they're just a really bad move away from using pure wool.
Royal Navy wearing jumpsuits.
Oh yeah, I don't like PCS. I don't like the new uniform, but that's not a practicality thing. That's a look thing. I don't like the Royal Navy wearing top PCS. I think the Royal Navy should still wear shirt and tie on the bridge, but that's just me. It's not very practical, but I do understand the change. I haven't. No, I haven't done Monty's Men. No, I would like to, but again, it's time and everything else. I don't have a lot of spare time because of my other hobbies. I do the railway. I play D&D. And I don't have much as doing the weekend events is fine. Going and doing a big event like that is a bit of drain on time, really. So yeah. So yeah, is that all of the list?
That's everything.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for dropping in and asking questions. We'll have to do another one of these at some time. Obviously, one of the reasons for doing this is COVID-19. I'm planning. At the present, I can carry on doing videos as I have done for a little while. I should be able to do the mannequin of the month, though it may not be what's voted for at the end of this month. It might have to be something I have the kit for, but we'll see. I have put the poll up on Patreon regardless for people to have a look at and vote. So hopefully I'll be able to honour that poll, but due to circumstances beyond my control, that might not be entirely possible, but I'll let you know nearer the time. And hopefully be able to get back to the collection and get some bits and pieces to talk about in the coming month or so. I have quite a few videos to go at yet, but I may end up with a point where I don't have a huge amount to talk about because I can't rotate things from the loft. So we shall see where we get to with that. But anyway, I'll update on that when I know more of what's going on. Yep, take care. Stay safe and have a nice rest of the evening, night. It's quite late now, so rest of the night, unless you're not in the UK. But anyway, goodbye for now. Hope you've enjoyed.